It is my view that the deceitful way the interview was obtained substantially influenced what my mother said. The interview was a major contribution to making my parents' relationship worse and has since hurt countless others.
Every so often, a decision from inside the royal family doesn't just make headlines, it rattles the very foundations of the monarchy. And right now, Prince William has made exactly that kind of move. In a quiet but powerful act, he has reportedly decided that Queen Camilla will have no place at the Diana Awards, the charity event created to honour his late mother's compassion. On paper, it looks like a simple change to a guest list, but in reality, it's an emotional thunderclap, a message that Diana's legacy is sacred, untouchable, and not to be shared with the woman most tied to her heartbreak. Imagine the weight behind that choice. Growing up with the ghost of a mother adored by millions, living through the betrayal that shattered her marriage, and then standing before the world as her son, determined to protect her memory at any cost. William's decision isn't about etiquette, it's about love, loyalty, and a son keeping the promise he made in silence after Diana's death. But is this defiance against his father, King Charles? Is it a warning shot to Camilla herself? Or is it simply William's way of saying, "This night belongs to my mother, and my mother alone"? To see why this matters so much, we need to step back into the past. In 1981, Lady Diana Spencer married Prince Charles in a wedding billed as a fairy tale, her ivory gown dazzling millions watching worldwide. But from the start, another figure loomed in the shadows. Camilla Parker Bowles, the woman Charles had loved before Diana, and the woman who never truly left his heart. What followed was years of hidden heartbreak, cracks in the marriage masked by palace smiles, and finally, Diana's own courage to speak the truth. In her famous 1995 Panorama interview, she revealed to the world, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." Those words shocked the public, but for young William, only 13 at the time, they cut deep. He wasn't just hearing a confession, he was watching his mother's suffering play out on national television, powerless to help. And then, just 2 years later, tragedy struck. In August 1997, Diana was killed in a Paris car crash, leaving William, just 15, to face the unbearable loss. From that day forward, he carried not only grief, but a vow: never let her legacy be tarnished, never allow her memory to be overshadowed. So when Charles eventually married Camilla in 2005, the world was told to accept her as Duchess of Cornwall, and later as Queen Consort. Slowly, the public warmed to her, but for William, the acceptance was far more complicated. Outwardly, he played the role of dutiful son, offering polite smiles and public support, but privately, insiders say his boundaries remained firm. And one of those boundaries was the Diana Award. Founded in 1999, just 2 years after Diana's passing, the award honors young people across the world who embody her values: kindness, courage, a commitment to making a difference. For William, this isn't just another charity event. It's personal, almost sacred. Every year, he immerses himself in the stories of the recipients, celebrating their impact with the same warmth Diana once gave to strangers. In that room, among those young changemakers, he feels her presence. And that's why, as the 25th anniversary of the award approached in December 2024, speculation swirled. Would Camilla attend? And if she did, would her presence cast a shadow over the night meant for Diana alone? The timing only intensified William's emotions. In 2021, the BBC's Lord Dyson report revealed that Diana's Panorama interview had been secured through lies and forged documents, exposing how her trust had been exploited at one of the most vulnerable moments of her life. William, shaken and furious, gave an unusually raw public statement, accusing the BBC of betraying his mother and declaring he would never allow her memory to be misused again. That moment wasn't just a press soundbite, it was a vow carved into stone. So as planning for the Diana Awards began, William's involvement was deeper than ever. He reviewed speeches, approved images of his mother, and personally oversaw the guest list. It became increasingly clear Camilla would not be there. For William, this wasn't about disrespect, it was about purity. Diana's night would remain Diana's alone. But in royal terms, this was explosive. The monarchy survives on appearances of unity, on presenting polished smiles, even when tension simmers beneath. Excluding Camilla risked whispers of division, speculation about rifts with his father, and criticism from those who see the monarchy as fragile enough already. Yet William held firm. He wasn't interested in optics. He was protecting something deeper, and the symbolism was impossible to ignore. By leaving Camilla off the list, William was sending a message that his mother's memory would not be diluted by the presence of the woman who had played such a painful role in her story. In many ways, his choice echoed his mother's own courage. Back in 1989, Diana reportedly confronted Camilla at a party, telling her directly, "I know what's going on. Don't treat me like an idiot." It was one of the few moments she openly voiced what had long been unspoken, and it marked a turning point in her struggle. Decades later, William seemed to echo that defiance, not with words but with action. The parallel wasn't lost on anyone watching. Royal commentators saw in this decision the reflection of Diana's strength, a mother's bravery living on through her son. And here's where the story sharpens. This decision is about more than Camilla, more than even Diana. It's about William himself and the kind of king he may one day become. By choosing sincerity over tradition, emotion over appearance, William is showing the world that his reign will not simply be about maintaining the status quo. It will be about truth, about boundaries, about protecting what matters most, even when it breaks protocol. Some will call it defiance, others will call it courage. But one thing is clear, it marks a shift. A monarchy built on silence now has an heir willing to let his choices speak louder than words. Still, questions linger. How did King Charles react behind palace doors? Was Camilla quietly wounded by the decision, or did she accept it as an unavoidable truth tied to Diana's enduring presence? Would Harry, from across the Atlantic, see it as justice for their mother, or as another sign of a fractured family? And perhaps most pressing, what does this mean for the monarchy's future? As the 25th anniversary of the Diana Awards drew near, anticipation reached a fever pitch. The world wasn't just waiting to see who would be honoured that night. They were waiting to see if William would follow through on his silent rebellion, if Camilla's absence would confirm the whispers, and if Diana's legacy would finally stand in the spotlight without shadows. The night of the 25th annual Diana Awards finally arrived, and while the cameras flashed and the red carpet gleamed, everyone was watching for one thing. Who would walk through the doors, and who would not? Inside the hall, photographs of Diana, chosen carefully by William himself, adorned the stage. Images of her hugging children, shaking hands with AIDS patients at a time when others recoiled, walking through a minefield with quiet courage. It was clear from the start that this was her night, a sanctuary of memory and meaning. As dignitaries and young changemakers took their seats, there was warmth in the air, a sense of pride and hope. Yet, beneath that, there was also a quiet tension, because one absence hung over the room like a ghost. Camilla, the queen consort, was nowhere to be seen. And just as insiders had whispered, her empty seat was no accident. It was the silent decision of a son who had chosen to put his mother above tradition. No official statement was made, but the silence said more than words ever could. William and Catherine entered with poise, their expressions calm but unmistakably focused. They greeted recipients one by one, listening to their stories with genuine attention. William's speech that evening was heartfelt, every word threaded with Diana's legacy. He spoke of kindness not as an ideal, but as an action, of courage not as a concept, but as a choice, and of young people changing the world the way his mother once had. His voice was steady, but behind the calm there was fire, an unspoken vow that her spirit would live on, protected, honoured, and never overshadowed. As the applause filled the hall, the cameras captured something remarkable. William wasn't just delivering a royal address, he was delivering a son's tribute, raw and deeply human. Meanwhile, outside those walls, the media stormed. The moment Camilla's absence was confirmed, headlines exploded. William snubs stepmother at Diana tribute, some shouted. Others framed it as a bold statement of loyalty. Prince William protects Diana's legacy. Royal commentators debated the implications. Was this a respectful boundary or a dangerous rift? Would it quietly fuel tension between Charles and William? Or would the king, perhaps privately, understand his son's choice? Inside the palace, sources whispered of discomfort, but also of inevitability. Some courtiers feared the decision might reopen old wounds. Others quietly admired William's resolve. Even Camilla, according to those close to her, chose silence, recognizing that this night belonged to Diana alone. She too understood that some scars cannot be smoothed over by protocol. The audience that evening, however, wasn't thinking about palace politics. They were focused on the award recipients, young activists who had fought bullying, defended mental health, protected the environment, and lifted up communities. For William, that was the reward. Looking into their faces, he saw his mother's values alive and well, passed on not through bloodlines but through spirit. It was as if, in that moment, Diana herself stood among them, smiling her familiar smile, reminding everyone why her memory still matters so fiercely. But beyond the speeches and applause, there was something larger happening. This decision to exclude Camilla wasn't just about the past. It was about the future of the monarchy itself. For decades, the Windsors have been criticized for their silence, for hiding emotions behind polished formality. William had just broken that pattern, not by making a scandalous statement, but by quietly acting on truth. He showed that sincerity could live beside tradition, that honesty could coexist with duty. For many, it was a glimpse of the kind of king he will one day be. A leader not afraid to draw lines, not afraid to honor what is personal, not afraid to let his humanity shape his crown. Of course, not everyone saw it that way. Critics argued that the monarchy needs unity now more than ever, and that William's choice risked sending a message of division. But for supporters, it was refreshing, even inspiring. Here was a royal showing that duty doesn't always mean compromise, that loyalty to family can also mean loyalty to truth. And for millions of Diana's admirers around the world, it felt like justice, like a long overdue recognition of the pain she endured. In the weeks after the ceremony, the debates only grew louder. Commentators dissected every detail: William's words, Camilla's absence, Charles's silence. Some wondered whether this marked a turning point, a shift where William would begin leading with his own style, less bound by the traditions that once suffocated his mother. Others speculated that this could quietly reshape the monarchy's future image, softening it with sincerity and emotional honesty. Behind closed doors, Charles was said to be walking a careful line, supporting his son while maintaining balance with his wife. The palace, as always, refused to comment, but for the public, the message was clear. William had chosen his mother, and in doing so, he had chosen authenticity. As for William himself, he gave no further explanation. He didn't need to. His decision spoke louder than any press release ever could. In his eyes, the Diana Award was never about politics. It was about purity. By keeping it free from the shadows of the past, he honored his mother in the most profound way possible. And perhaps in that silence, there was also healing. Looking ahead, one can't help but wonder, what will this mean for future Diana Awards? Will Camilla's absence become the new norm, a quiet tradition of respect? Or will there one day be a reconciliation, a moment where the past and present stand side by side? These questions remain unanswered, but one thing is certain. The night of the 25th Diana Awards was a turning point. It wasn't just about who was honored on stage. It was about the unshakable bond between a son and his mother, about the courage to protect what matters, and about the legacy of a woman who changed the monarchy forever. And as William left the stage that night, the applause still echoing, the message was clear. Diana's light still shines, and he will guard it with everything he has. But here's the twist. This isn't the end of the story, because William's bold stand has opened new questions about the monarchy's future. Questions that will only grow louder in the years ahead. And in our next video, we'll explore exactly that, how William's leadership style could reshape the crown itself, and what it means for the future of the royal family. So if you want to stay with us as this story unfolds, don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.